Well, hey, welcome back. This is Mark. Here's a new video on um, some new changes that I put in to set up more complex AI logic. So we had a player play the World War III scenario in the Second Fleet area, this one right here, and this map at least. And some feedback essentially was that you had a lot of the Soviet forces. So basically, the Soviet forces, the whole purpose in the World War III scenario, right, is to get troops and take over territory, right? So we're not going to have them take over England or America or anything like that. But they have limited objectives, and those limited objectives are essentially all the bases in Norway. You have the Icelandic bases. I think I even said that I even as gave them the ability to also land in um, uh, the Orkney Islands and the Shetland Islands. But so when you set up your AI very generically, right, at the beginning of the game, they may pick they may have a troops or a fleet right here, and they end up picking they'll go down here, which means they just sail pretty much like lemmings, and it's really hard for them to do that. Now, um, so there really wasn't there's they followed a logic, but we wanted probably a little more intelligent of the logic. So I want to show you quickly how I have now given designers the ability to create nested trigger logic that will allow you to set up more complex logic for your AI. Um, all right, so let's just get to it. Okay, so imagine that we have a scenario where we're basically just going to set up the scenario here, and then I'm going to quickly switch to a game where I've already prepped everything, like all the forces that are needed, just to let you see how the AI processes, so you get an idea of the impact that you could have by setting these, um, by setting these priorities. Okay, so. Um, if you remember, the way you set up logic is you can create logic objects pretty much anywhere here in the map. I've created some convenience abilities to kind of mass produce these things for things that you would normally just um, very repetitive tasks, and I've done so with this new logic as well. So what we're going to do is uh, um, I'm going to show a little bit of like how we would set these things up. So what you think about in your scenario, you start thinking, okay, well, most AI scenarios usually have to do with forces trying to get to some location, and um, and then the ship should normally disappear. But for your larger scenarios, like your World War III scenarios, you actually you have to set up you have to set up objectives that are basically like repetitive objectives that the enemy will attempt to do over and over again. Like, for instance, if you have an amphibious assault ship, that amphibious assault ship should land its troops somewhere. Then, after it lands troops somewhere, it should try to pick up more troops somewhere else. Then, after it picks up those troops, it should then try to land them at another place, right? So, a more persistent behavior. So you design like the design that we're going to use here, and we can get much more complex than this, but I'm going to show a very simplistic approach so you get the idea, and so let's go for it. All right, so we can imagine that the Soviets would want to take over these bases here, or at least ones that they can get to. Now, AI currently don't do any paradrops, so I'm going to ignore Bardufoss right now. Bardufoss is not accessible by sea, so we're not going to. It can't be invaded. Maybe in the future we'll have some setup for that, but essentially we will allow the enemy to destroy Bardafoss, but we won't. They can't invade it, right? So let's go ahead and set up that. So um, So if you click on any particular base, you now see things like, um, yeah, you now see things like, why can't I? What's going on here? Did I not put this? Am I missing how I've done it before? All right, let me see what, let me pause this. What the freak? Okay, we're back. I'm dumb. In order to make any of this work, the scenario has to be set up for garrison war, which is an option, which is an option up here. So I never set this thing. Okay, so we're gonna set it to garrison combat, and this is all what you're doing. So most missions are not set up as garrison combat. I forgot that I have to set on garrison combat. Um, so when you set up garrison combat, you can either choose to have it automatically conquer when the attack value is when one side is two times the defense, and it conquers at that point. The one I like using is the one with the zero. It will conquer when the defenders are at zero defense, and they'll have like a simulated combat each turn. I like that one best. So I'm gonna choose that, and then go back and now we should be able to set these things up. Okay, um, so first determine what are the bases that you're going to want to either have victory points awarded for destroying the base or possibly or capturing the base, right? Not every base you want to be capturable during a mission. For instance, I would never set any of the Kola Peninsula bases to be captured, right? It just doesn't make any sense, right? The NATO is never going to attack the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union had way too many forces up here for any realistic scenario be that the Allies would actually invade. But I could definitely see the Allies wanted to destroy bases. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to set up these things, right? So now the way you normally would set it up is just by setting up a mission or an objective, an AI objective that would have them try to do those things. But I've kind of added in some ways of now associating VP with it so that you can actually get points for things. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit just so you can see what's going on here. Um, all right, so let's pick Banach. Okay, all right, when you click on Banach, you notice now I can set the garrison and supplies. If you notice, we've now changed it. So garrison and supply are two different values that you can track per base. This you'll have a friendly garrison and supplies, and you could also possibly have an enemy garrison and supplies. Supplies are treated slightly differently, where if one side ends up like there's no forces on that base, but they did land supplies, then the side that remains can use those supplies. Okay, so you never want to try to land supplies without landing some type of garrison before that. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're designing your scenarios. So we'll set up a basic garrison, right, of some amount that will put up a little bit of a fight, but there's no way it's going to withstand a concerted attack effort. So for garrison, you can now click the garrison field, and we can now put in. I'm going to put in 5. All right, so 5 is a value that means generally it'll be outnumbered if a large alpha amphibious assault ship lands, right? Because usually the larger amphibious assault ships can carry between 10 to 15, their special value on their markers. So a 5 is one that's going to be pretty much outnumbered very quickly, but it'll put up a little bit of defense, right? So just give you a little bit of time if you're trying to rush forces up there. I'll provide some supplies to them. Um, I wouldn't worry too much about supplies yet, but supplies are basically used by um, after if let's say you can use 50 supplies to help accelerate repair of a base. That includes whether if a base was destroyed or not. Normally, through the basic game that this Fleet Series games, if you were to destroy this airfield could never be used again. Well, now we can accelerate like rebuilding of that base by spending 50 um, uh, 50 supply. All the 50 supply is going to do is basically allow you to go from damage of 4 down to damage of 3. Now, once you go down to damage of 3, every day after that, it'll then go from 3 to 2 to 2 to 1 to finally fully healed. Each day you'll repair one, but the current the way the current logic works is once it gets to 4 and that facility is destroyed, there's no coming back from that. Well, now you can use supplies to either accelerate something that is already healing, or better yet, use supplies to take something that's been destroyed and make it now not destroyed, just heavily damaged, and it will repair. So another thing that I've changed is the fact that when a base is conquered, the original logic that I had in the game, which is based off of some of the Fleet series, is that once you conquer a base, it automatically destroys all the facilities on there. Well, it's not going to do that anymore. It'll damage each of the facilities if there's a combination of port and airfield or just airfield. It'll damage those facilities by 1 if it's conquered, right? So that means that if you're conquering something and you're trying to get planes landed on take over an airbase, then after you take it, there's going to be a little damage on that airfield, and you'll have to at least wait a week. I'm sorry, a day, 3 turns to repair that one, and then you can start flying in your aircraft if you wanted to take that. So, um, and if it was already damaged, and by you conquering it, it destroyed it, then you can use supplies to take it out of destruction back down to just heavily damaged, and then it'll automatically. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up some garrisons here just for giggles, just so there's a little bit of a storyline here. And I'll put some supplies here, likely, just for realism scenario. Well, let's see. Well, I guess I could put some at Bardafoss, even though nobody's going to invade that. But if you were actually playing as a non-AI, then you could land. You could send ATRs. You could send air transports and land troops at airfields and take them. So I'll put a little bit of. I'll put a little bit of. I'll put a couple supplies there too. Okay, so we're only going to handle these initial these bases here just for the purposes of me showing what's going on. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish that. I'll go through Narvik as well. And finally, okay. All right, so now I've set up the defenses. So notice there's an option now called Add Conquer VP and Triggers and Add Destroy VP and Triggers. Okay, so this big change that I'm showing you has to do with that you can use trigger objects to be either on or off, and them being on or off will then control which objectives the AI will use. Okay, so for instance, I would set triggers that would be off at first that would not allow the enemy to attack Narvik and Endoya. Because I would put a trigger that says if you conquer Bannock, then if I conquer Bannock, then I now have the ability to conquer Tromso. Or if I conquer Bannock and Tromso, I then have the ability to attack Andoya. So in order to do that, you have to set up triggers. So I've created some logic that will allow you to create some triggers right off the bat to help you. So the way you do that is you select the bases that you want to be conquerable, and when you hit add conquer VP triggers, let's see what it does. Okay, boom, it just created a bunch of stuff in there. Okay, so let's double click on this so we can see everything. All right, first thing it did was it created a destroy base objective for the allies. Why? Because it knows that at some point, since you just made this base conquerable, that means at some point this base might be owned by the other side. So if that base is owned by the other side, then the allies would probably want to have a destroy base objective that would then destroy the base back, right? Like the allies might decide that. So anyway, it creates this destroy. It doesn't mean it's anyone's using it. It just means that it's giving you all the things that you might need for that particular scenario. Okay. It also creates an unload and an invade for the allies. Now, why do you say unload and invade? Well, it makes sense, right? If I'm making this base contestable, then that means that the allies will likely want to bring troops there to reinforce it. they may also want to bring troops to invade it if it were changed over to the Soviet side. So it creates already the objectives that you might need. Okay. Um, what now? It also do the same for. Um, I'll do the triggers later. So for the red side, it does the same. Okay. And so think about it, right? Maybe it's a hard concept, but I think you guys probably understand, right? You want to have each side wants to have the same general kind of objectives because the base can change hands. And so, depending on whether the base has changed hands or not, the AI will choose different things. Now, the AI won't try to destroy the base. Or for instance, the Soviets, if they were to conquer this base, the destroy base wouldn't work, right? Because there's already code underlying destroy base that says you're not going to try to destroy a base that you own. Okay, so the logic of the game already prevents that. But you want to create these objectives. You want to create more. You want to create more objectives than you think your your forces will actually perhaps use in your normal scenario, but you're creating it so that if there are differences or changes, the scenario goes a way that you're not planning, you want the logic to still be able to handle that. Okay? So now the cool things that have now been created are these triggers. Okay? So notice there's a trigger, there's three triggers created. One trigger for Banach destroyed. So essentially what I've done is, here, let me give you an example here. I'm going to create a trigger just so you see what a normal trigger would be. The types that um, okay. So here's a normal trigger that you used to be able to create with the game. Okay. These are manual triggers. Okay. They all were manual, which means you can set a message on here saying um, uh, if if red side plays fairly. Okay, I'm putting a bar there so that separates so when it's showing the description, it does a line break. If red side plays fairly, awards 5 VP. Okay, all right, so now trigger off, it's off. It says if red side plays fairly, awards 5 VP. Okay, so this trigger is manually set, meaning that you as a player would have to set these in order to award the in order to award a the fourth, award the points. So how many points did I say it was going to award? All right, it's going to award 5 points. So I'm going to put down 5 for that. Now notice once I said awards 5, it now says recurring. All right, we'll set it to recurring. Yes, we'll set it to yes recurring. So what does that mean? That means this manual trigger, if if you were to turn it on, notice it's off right now, but I could turn it on here in setup. So you could set up manual VP that'll just automatically award. And since I've set it to recurring, each turn the game will now resolve this trigger and see, am I activated? Okay, do I award something for it? Yes, I do. Do I continue to award something each turn? Yes, I do. So that gives you the ability to create things like a handicap, for instance, right? Maybe one side has a lot less forces than the other. So what you're going to do is you're going to give 3 VP a turn. So this could be something where you could, in your setup phase, create a manually set one that you set on, okay? And it awards 5 and it's recurring. So that means every turn it will award 5 VP to the red side. Okay. All right. Because notice it says red VP5 awarded, and it shows that it's been awarded. Okay. All right. So or it will be awarded when the game starts. All right. I'm going to turn it off though because I don't want it awarded, and I do want it recurring just for giggles. Actually, I'm going to delete this because this isn't a realistic one. So I'm going to show you now actual realistic triggers that you would create. But I wanted to give you a base understanding of how a trigger works. Okay. All right. So I'm going to delete this trigger. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go all the way back over here. That's one thing I don't like is that it goes. Okay. So let's talk about these triggers. Okay. So here's a trigger. Now this one is not manually set. So now I've created the ability to have triggers that are not manually set. They're going to be automatically set based on some event. Now the only two events that I have created so far because I haven't really proved out why there would be any other types of events. But I'm sure there's some smart players there who can come up with some better ideas of how to maybe also automate triggers. But for right now, I think that the two use cases that I want to be able to do is I'd like to have the AI's objectives and or I'd like to award VP automatically when things happen. Okay, so the two things happen that I've now created triggers for that will automatically do this, right? During the game will actually figure out whether to award these VPs is when the base is destroyed. Okay, so this was created as so the reason why it did all this stuff work for me is because I created that little. You can do this. I could have created this one manually, but I created a little button that allows you to create the basic type of triggers that you might want to create for a base that is conquerable. Okay, so what it did was it created one trigger. Says it awards 5. It's not recurring, so it's a one-time award. On when this base is destroyed, yes, it's linked to this hex 3308. Okay. Uh, it's going to check the airfield for destruction. Okay. So that's the only thing it has on it. So you don't want it checking the port because then it might not ever be true because it's never going to find a port that's destroyed. So you only have it check the airfield. Okay, so what that basically means that this trigger will try to resolve every turn to see is this base destroyed. If this base is destroyed, award that side red, the red side, um, 5 BP one time. Okay. Now you also have another one on captured. So this trigger, it creates one. So there's two ways you can set up automation. One is when the base is destroyed. The other one is when this location is friendly. So this one I've set up where it says it gives 5 BP every turn as long as this base is friendly to red. Okay, so if the Soviets take this, they get a 5-point award right off the bat, plus a 5-point. Let's say they take it. Well, if they take it, they only get this one. If they take it and destroy it, they get the other ones. But they probably don't want to take it and destroy it because they want to use it. So as you can see, you now see like all the variability in this. Now, um, I've also set this thing to have to be able for this location is friendly thing. That's a purely like Boolean thing, right? It's either true or false, right? I mean everything is true or false, but this one is one of those things where you may want this trigger to be considered on if the inverse value. Okay. Now I don't know exactly why. I haven't figured out a scenario where you would use that, but I think there are scenarios for that. Most of the time, you're probably not going to use inverse value. You're just going to say, hey, listen, when the thing is friendly, it's considered true, and that's why it would award to this red, right? But I guess there could be some times where you'd say when it's awarded, it's technically false, or when it's yours, it's technically false, and when it's not, it's true, right? You might use that for like complex logic that you'd see, but for most people, I don't think they're going to use the inverse value. All right, so it created one other called Banach nullified. Okay, notice how special this guy is. This one is an automated one where it is. So there's 3 ways that triggers can be automated when a location is set to friendly, when a location is destroyed, and that could be either the port or the airfield or the close defense or all 3 or whatever, right? Um, and one that is determined based on other triggers. So notice this trigger shows it's on when other triggers are on. Use or logic. Okay, so that's now this using and ors, that's very essential when you use logic, right? You have to, so basically every single decision criteria you could possibly do when you're programming a game is using ands and ors and trues and falses, right? That's how all logic goes. So this thing allows you to do that, right? So it automatically created these. Now you could have created these if you wanted by going into, if I created this thing manually and I'm saying, okay, I want to link this to it's either conquered or destroyed, then I would go to triggers and I would choose these two. And I would say I would check that one and check that one. So So essentially, right, what this trigger is this trigger will be set false when either the base is conquered or the base is destroyed, which makes sense, right? Your AI would want to know if this guy is conquered or destroyed, then I don't need to worry about messing with him anymore. Okay, so that means you could actually set patrols, right? Like if I zoom out a little bit, right, I could set a patrol. So let's say I could create a patrol that covers this area. But um, when this guy is finally true, right? Using the inverse, I could turn off this. I could create a trigger that is based off of the inverse of that, where it says, "Hey, don't patrol here once this guy is um, uh, friendly." Instead, you could have this thing become enabled, a patrol here come enabled when this thing is destroyed. So as you can see, you can kind of build logic into which objectives are available for the AI based on these situations. The way I'm going to show you how it works is I'm going to create, so this is what I'm going to do. Tromso can be taken. So I'm going to add the Conquer VP trigger to that. Andoya can be taken. So I'm going to add the Conquer to that. Narvik, I'm going to add the Conquer to that. Pechenga, I'm going to say that the allies could get VP. So use triggers for either controlling logic of the AI or just giving VP in a triggered faction, right? So for Pechenga, let's say we set for this scenario that the allies get 10 points one time if they destroy Pechenga's airfield. Or better yet, Kilpiever, right? That's a base that's normally got a lot of big bombers on it. So we're going to say that for Kilpiever, so we'll do add destroy VP triggers. Notice it created a couple of them. One is it created a destroy base for the allies, and it says, oh here that's the objective. Then there should be a trigger for it that says, okay, here's the trigger. So when Kilpiever is destroyed, just check the airfield because that's the only thing it has here. When it's the base is destroyed, we're going to award 10 points. Okay. And then I'll likely want to change the description, right? I put down 5 points just as a default, just to give you a starting point. Okay. So now this thing gives 10 points one time if Kilpiever is destroyed. Okay. All right. Now, um, just to show you an example of a non-capturable base, but a destroyable base, right? Now, you may say, well, all bases I want to make destroyable. That's fine. All bases are destroyable. There's nothing stopping you during a mission to destroy bases, and you'll get VP for every damage you get to those bases. But if there's special bases that you want to award VP because they're destroyed, then you can create these triggers to give VP based on that. Okay. All right, so now we've created all this logic that basically detects whenever these 4 bases are destroyed. Okay, for this guy, for Bartifos, we'll just say we'll add a destroy VP trigger on it yeah, they'll get 5 points if they destroy. I think what is it? Yeah, yeah. So the Reds will get 5 points if they destroy this airfield. Okay, so that's a way of you awarding. Now, for the conquering though, I'm going to layer the logic here, right? So, for instance, let's go with okay. So, for the objectives here, the Soviet objective of let's look at these Soviet objectives. Okay. So, what I want to try to do is um, okay. What I want to do is I want to make the the I want to make the Soviets not attack Tromso or not have this as one of your A objectives until Banach is nullified. Okay, so I go to this invade Tromso, and what I do is this logic already exists, but now we're using it, right? So I'm going to link this invade to a trigger, and I'm going to say that this guy is only enabled when Banach is notified, which is this notified trigger. Okay, so what that means is that if the Soviets will not try to invade, where's it at? Where's the? Oh, it's right here. Sorry, they won't try to do this invade objective until uh, until whatever Banach is nullified. I'm gonna do the same for their unload as well. I'm gonna set that to be triggered based on Banach nullified. And finally, I'm going to do the destroy base. Well, for destroy base, I'm going to let this objective should be already available, right? I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be trying to destroy the base right off the bat. Okay, so yeah, so really, it's honestly probably the only one I really needed to control was probably the invade. I did set the unload as well, but it wouldn't unload there anyway because you can't unload at an enemy base, so it wouldn't have chosen it anyway. But I would try it not to invade the base until that's nullified. So and then what you could do is you could create a new trigger, okay? And this is what I'm going to show you what I did. I'm going to create another trigger, logic trigger, and this trigger is going to be called. We're going to call this one Barents C bases nullified. Okay. Now, all right. So this one is not going to be manually set. We're going to make it automatically set. So we're going to turn off that. We're going to say when other triggers are on, we're going to not use OR logic because we want to use AND logic on this, but you could use OR, right? But I'm going to use AND logic, and I'm going to pick two triggers. I'm going to choose Banach nullified and Tromso nullified. Okay. So what did I just do? I just created a trigger that will be true when this one is true and the nullified ones are true. And each of those nullifieds are true if either the base is conquered or destroyed. So there you've just created logic. So now what I could do is I could say that this one, here as an example, let's find the invade. Here's the red invade. This red invade should be dependent on, I'm going to link it to the Barents C nullified. So there you go. So that's the concept. So what I'm going to do now is that's the concept. Now let's see it in practice. All right. So I'm going to switch over to the other game, which is this one right here. This one's already been set up with it. I've created some troops and stuff, and they're all. You'll see what they do, right? So essentially, I've just created a bunch of like convoys with like one destroyer there. I also have the allies with two small groups here. I didn't want to put too many forces in there because I didn't want to see I didn't want to see a lot of combat. I just want you to see the movement and what they choose to do. So let's just let it go. Okay, so in this one, as you can tell, I've set up a bunch of triggers. They're all right over here. They're all right here, right? And those are all the triggers and all the missions and stuff. So I've done all the work to set up the objectives and stuff, which you could see how to create these groupings and patrols in other videos. But this one is particularly talking about triggers, so I didn't show all that, right? But anyway, you can hit me up on Discord if you'd like me to, kind of walk through how to set these things up. But essentially, I'm just going to show you the logic at work. Okay, so let's kind of set some things, make sure we got everything here. We'll do no weather because I don't really want weather messing around with it. I don't want any random effects either. I'm using garrison combat. I'll use conquer with 0. Oh, I need to set. I'm going to set both sides to be AI, and then I'm done. And I think that's all I should have to do. All right, so let's just watch it go. Hope it doesn't blow up. All right, here's your review. All right, that's the first look. Let's get it moving. I want to show you what's actually happening. All right, the AI is figuring things out. Okay, let's see what all the AI chose to do. So this blue, oops, I forgot to take, well, oh well. So I forgot to take out the Philippine Sea, which I had added to the scenario before, but I wanted to make it very simplistic, so I forgot to take off the Philippine Sea. So yeah, if the Allies get really close, this Tycho is probably going to mess up the small amount of Russians there, but it'll take a while for the Allies to get up there. But anyway, notice. So this group chose to unload at Andoya. Makes sense, right? They were given these missions to unload anywhere. They have troops, and there's like, well, these are the ones that are going to be contestable. So I want to unload troops there. All right, let's see what else everybody's doing. Okay. All right, this task group is unloading at Banach or Bannock. Okay, so he's trying to get there. All right, what next? Okay, now we have three Soviet groups. This first one is invading Banat. Okay, this next one is invading Banat, and this next one is invading Banat. Makes sense, right? Because I set it up so essentially the only invade they had available to them was Banat, so they chose it. Now once they invade Banat, and if Banat is still in green hands, then they may send back more troops there. But likely by the time they do that, Banat's going to be in Soviet hands. So at that point, the Tromso um, uh, objective will come available. But let's just watch it and see what happens. I'm gonna move this guy out of the way. All right, let's go. There they go. Do, do, do. And I have it going like super fast with no aircraft, so these rounds should fly by. Okay, let's just see what they do. Okay, they're done with that turn. Turn two. Okay, same thing. All right, let's go. Here they go. Da, 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 da. All right. They show up, and immediately the destroyer does a quick little close combat, shelling the facility. No effect. Okay. Now, the way the AI works, the AI won't actually start doing their unloading or loading unless they start the turn in that thing. So the beginning of this next turn, you'll see that and I'll show you it. I'll show you what they do. Okay, boom. Let's take a look at it. These guys are still en route. This guy's unloading at Andoya. This guy's unloading at Banak. This guy is invading, but he's still a little far away. This guy is at the port. He's now showing that the group is unloading. He's still on an invade, but and all the things are unloading. So they now unloaded. And now if you take a look at Banach, notice it shows Garrison 2 supplies 5, enemy 17 supplies 20. So that's what just got downloaded. So at the end of this turn, there'll be a little bit of a battle. Or actually at the beginning of next turn, there'll be a little bit of a combat battle. All right? Well, let's let it go. All right. While he's there, he's also going to hit the the airfield, but no effect. When the other Russian stuff gets in there, they should also attack as well. Yep, close combat. They rolled a 5, no effect. For some reason, I put a Subramini in. He has actually a good amount of. Okay, he missed though. He had a 10% chance of damaging, but he rolled an 8, so he missed it. All right, we're gonna almost get to the end of this round, this turn. All right, we're going to turn 3. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, went to turn 4. Notice, Banak, combat losses to both sides, 1.7. Why? Because the attacking force had 17 points. 1/10 of that is 1.7, so the attacker loses 1.7, and the defender loses 1.7. Since the defender is smaller than the attacker, eventually the defender is going to lose out. Okay? All right, no weather to mess things up. Let's see what happened. All right, these guys are still en route, no change. Let's take a look at here. Now you got 2 more groups showing up as invading. They're both unloading, which now if we look at the base, we should now see a lot of, let's see, Banach. Okay, Banach has barely any garrison left. It shows 0. I think it's actually got point. it rounds to the nearest number, but it really has zero point 0.3 or something like that remaining. And enemy 46. So the Russians are about to take this base. Notice also that all three groups are launching close combat attacks on the base. So they have a chance of damaging the base. Do they want to damage the base? Probably not, but they know but the AI is not that small. The AI is not that smart, knowing, hey, we're just about to conquer it, so don't attack it. I mean, that's a little too much intelligence. So they're gonna attack it anyway because it's enemy, and that's what they do. All right, so let's go. All right, boom, close combat. This is an enhancement I put into. For some reason, the close combat stuff were not like combining attacks together. Well, now it will. So now, altogether, they have a 30% chance of damaging the airfield, and they did. They rolled a 9, so it damages 1 level. Okay? Now, if you look, if I hit pause here, some of the logic. Okay? Let's see if it worked. If I go to VP, bang, 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 look. So this guy got damaged. So now the new logic says that every time you damage a enemy base, so on the red side is now has 2.5 points because they damaged Banach of 2.5. Okay. They haven't gotten any of the trigger VP yet because they haven't either destroyed it or conquered it. But you'll see they're about to. All right. Notice this guy is now leaving. He's now moving. He's got a load perspective. So this guy was just at Banach. He dropped off his troops last turn. Now he's on his way back, and he's heading back to Pechenga to load again. Because he can't do anything else. Once this turn ends, the other two groups will leave as well. Okay, now we're moving on to turn 5. Banach, combat losses to both sides, 0.3. Banach conquered by Sov, the Soviet side, by the red side. Okay, so if we look at that, okay, these guys are still on the way. This should be interesting here. This guy will probably, he's going to change orders pretty soon. Because after a round goes, he rechecks his perspective or his objective to see if it's still valid. And unload at Banach is not valid anymore because you unload at a friendly, but you invade an enemy, and Banach is now in the hands of the enemy. So he may pick up an invade of Banach, but he might also choose an unload someplace else. My guess is it's probably going to change to an invade of Banach, but let's see what happens. Actually, I don't know what's going to happen because I know the code should do that, but we'll see if it does. All right. These guys are all now leaving, right? At the beginning, they're now loading and they're heading out. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at Banach. Okay. So notice the garrison is. Oh, you know what they're doing? You know what they're doing? They had to choose what to do. And the way I set up the thing is this base is also a load objective as well. They decided, hey, we'll just load from this base. So now they're loading stuff off the base, and what they're probably gonna do is after they load it, they're gonna try to invade the next guy. We'll see what happens. But they're right now loading. So they unloaded last turn, took the base. Now they're immediately loading from that base because that base is now owned by them. It has no enemy on it, so they're loading from it. Sometimes you can't predict what the A is going to do. All right. So let's look. This guy's unloading at Endoya. This guy should be. Aha! He did change to invade. He's invading Banach. Now, he actually figured that out last turn, but I haven't checked on him since then. I let it run. So, yeah, he's smart enough to know, hey, I can't unload at Banach. I have to invade it. All right. These guys, what are they doing now? Okay, now notice the two groups, since they're sitting in the same thing, they merged. And now they just loaded up and now they're invading. And where are they invading? They're invading Tromso. Why are they invading Tromso? Because the Tromso objective just became enabled because the trigger got hit. And if we look at the VP, we notice that when So Banach was conquered last turn. I didn't check, but they got awarded 5 VP for that. It's now turn 6, and they got awarded it again. And because whenever you conquer, you also damage the facility one time, they also got another damage on that airfield. So far, the Reds are leading 15 points to nothing. Okay? And now they're going to head down here to Tromso. Let's just let it run and see what happens. I'm just going to let this run like maybe 1 or 2 turns just so you can get the idea of what's going on. But as you can see, this now you have the capability of creating somewhat more logical actions of the enemy. I set it so it was very procedural, right? First they got to attack Banach, then they got to attack Tromso. Then after they attack both of those and they conquer both of those, then they have the choice of either hitting Andoya or Narvik. But you could have done it any way. You could have set it up to that you could have set it up so that initially all four of these were available for them to attack. To maybe add a little, the defenders don't really know where they're going to attack, right? Because they're all pretty close, so it's not that illogical that they might bypass Banach to take Andoya, right? Um, so. So I mean, you could, but I didn't set up like that. I set it up that way, the way so that's very easy to see. First, they attack Banach, but you could have made it done all four, right? And the point is, behind the scenes, the triggers are being turned on and off based on certain circumstances that then controls the AI objectives that they do. So, um, I think that's about it. Yeah, I could probably continue this. You can see maybe some combat as these guys get up here. But essentially, I've run this thing a couple of times, and just how I've set up the mission, it's a big advantage for the Soviets, which makes sense, right? They don't have to travel as far. I set them up with more troops and supplies here in the Kola Peninsula, which makes sense, right? The Soviets generally had more troops than the Allies did, and in this area of the world, they're closer to it. Now, things will start evening out once the Soviets probably take these bases and then they start trying to work their way down to, if I were to extend the objectives and the logic, I would have them go all the way down to Bergen, right? But Bergen I would not have available right off the bat, right? Bergen I would probably have, hey, they can't even try to attempt to invade Bergen until they've taken, I don't know, depending on how many triggers I want to create and what the logic is, I could make mine very uh, very involved. It could be that I don't know. Any either or, right? Either or land or Trondheim and Bodo and either Andoya or Narvik. I could set up ands and ors all to make that logic work, right? So, so that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna put this out. I'm gonna put it out onto the Discord. If this at all interests you, if you're interested as a game designer, now that you have some abilities to kind of create some really cool logic for your AI people, you should try that. Come on to the Discord. The link is on my um, uh, YouTube description, and I hope to see you guys around. But anyway, appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the folks that have been subscribing and all the folks that have joined the Discord and all of the great feedback that I've gotten from players that have made the game just a better version than it was even yesterday. So until next time, I'll see everybody in the next video.